Welcome to Life, Love, and Therapy. I am Jumi Olawale. This show is about learning tips, advice, and ideas about how to improve our lives and relationships from the viewpoint of a therapist. I am excited to have my friend Carrie Fleider come and speak to us today about adoption. So Carrie, I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
I'm Carrie Fleider. I have a daughter, age 4. Her name is Livia Micheline Fleider. So I'm a clinical social worker. I'm a therapist, and I'm currently the assistant director of the counseling center at The Ohio State University. And I work in particular with the training program. We have a large training program that I help to coordinate.
How did you come to the decision to adopt?
That's a really good question. I think it was over a long period of time. So I am in my late 40s. My journey to motherhood started at least 10 years ago. When I was younger, and kind of the background to me is that I grew up without a mother. So my mom passed away when I was 4, and she was 34, and she had Hodgkin's disease, and eventually that took her life. And so growing up, I always was really curious about motherhood and really had that weighed heavy in my heart, right? Something that I wanted to be a part of or have that relationship in some capacity. But then life went on, and I had different relationships, different things that occurred, and I got older and older. And so in my late 30s, I was like, well, I'd better do something about this. And I knew that I still really wanted to be a mother, even if I wasn't partnered. Just sort of non-traditionally, I still wanted to be a mom. At first, I went the route of insemination and trying to get pregnant naturally. But again, I was sort of in my late 30s when this really started in earnest. And after, a series of failed tries, life happened again, and I moved again to Ohio. And then I had turned, now I was like in my early 40s, and I went to see a reproductive endocrinologist here locally, and basically just decided that it wouldn't make much sense for me to try. I could either try a higher level of fertility treatment, or I could look towards adoption. And so adoption has been kind of a thing in my family. I have cousins who have adopted internationally 2 times from China, 1 time from Ethiopia. Domestically, there's been some domestic adoptions in my family. And so there was precedent for me to start thinking about adoption. And so I did. Once I decided, I had to kind of grieve first.
I can't wait to get to that.
I had to grieve first to make space for sort of this other idea of what motherhood could look like. And so I did that work and started down the process of international adoption. And that process took 3 years from beginning to end.
You are tenacious.
Yes. I don't know about tenacious, but I persevere.
A few episodes ago, I interviewed one of my friends. The interview was about being single in your 30s. And I talked to her about the idea that, everybody's going to be coupled. And she came up with the idea that everyone is not going to be coupled. Mm-hmm. And so having to rethink your future, especially if you want to have a child, is different.
Yeah.
How did you work around having to rethink that whole process?
Well, I think that whole 10-year period was a process of doing that. I think when I was younger, I had this idea of what my future would look like. And it included a family and a house and a partner and a this and a that, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of what was happening in my 30s and early 40s is just deconstructing that and being able to be critical about that, to ask, is that really how? Am I out of luck if my outcome doesn't look like that picture? And I said, no, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
No, and I think that's the sort of fortunate part of being in this time, yeah, that we do have options, and there are other ways of of becoming families and having futures that having families that can look very different.
Yeah, and
from
still
one
being a
another.
family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's all legit.
And it's all legit.
You said that you went through artificial insemination, and it didn't plan out. How did you deal with that loss and grieving of all that process?
Again, it was sort of over a long period of time, but I do remember coming home from my meeting with the endocrinologist here, and one of the things that I learned was that to go on to higher tiers of fertility and have that be covered by insurance, I aged out by 6 months.
What?
So
There is such a thing as aging out?
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but apparently for the insurance that I have, that they'll cover certain expenses related to infertility treatment up until you're a certain age, and then you're sort of out of luck and it's not covered. So you either have to be a person of means, which I am not, or do it younger.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember coming home from that appointment and calling my best friend and bursting into tears and just sort of, I think that's when it really hit me, okay, I'm not going to birth a child. And I always thought I would.
We always make these assumptions that we would, right?
Some people do. I think a lot of women are socialized to do that, and I certainly was. And
During that time, if you think back, what did that mean for you as a woman, not being able to birth your child the way that you had imagined that you would?
I mean, back then, I think there was a lot of fear, and I think I felt it more acutely. Now it doesn't matter to me because I have my daughter and she's amazing and she's just like her own little person and being and superstar. So it doesn't, back then it was painful. Now I can see that it actually it doesn't matter.
So what would you say to a woman that is in that space that you were back then? Maybe struggling with infertility and trying to figure out how to have this child, or maybe they thought they were partnered and they were going to, conceive with this guy and it's not happening.
Yeah. I just wish for them to know that there are other possibilities, that the narrative that they have, there's more than that narrative out there. There's multiple narratives on how to be a family and how to be a parent and how to be a mother.
Segue into the narrative of adoption.
Okay.
So you made this decision. You had done 10 years of internal work, ups and downs, and you finally make the decision to do this adoption, which is not new to your family. So I think that's helpful. Do you think it made it easier to do that jump?
It definitely made it easier to do that jump because there was precedent, there were examples, there were models in my family already. So it made it a lot easier for me to do it.
Did you have any fears going in?
Oh my God. I had fears all over the place.
Everywhere.
I still have fears. Right? I had fears. My adoption process itself was really complicated and unusual. I had fears that it wasn't going to happen. I had fears of reactive attachment issues. I had fears that I would be a terrible mother. I had fears that it just would go badly at every step. That a child wouldn't connect with me or I wouldn't connect with it. And my daughter is a woman of color. And so I still have lots of fears about how do I protect her and can I protect her from racism and all the isms out there. As a white woman, how do I help her in dealing with our racist culture? So there are lots of fears. Now my fears mainly in, am I too permissive? Am I not harsh enough? Or is she going to become a mean girl because I can't set limits well?
Because she's so cute.
Because she is really cute. And she's spunky.
Every fear that every mother has.
Exactly.
Where did you go to start this adoption?
So the way my process worked was basically on the internet. I started looking for international adoption and getting the lay of the land of what agencies are out there and what they're known for or well respected or Hague accredited. So I did a lot of internet research. And some people spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of adoption, whether domestic or international. For me, I just went to the international. And because my family, there were already examples of international adoption, I just thought, well, let's do it. So I contacted a couple agencies and I did some interviewing. I settled on one that was actually located in Akron. Then the first part of adoption, there's like all sorts of money involved. And every step of the way, there's like another fee for this and another fee for that. And there's tons of paperwork. So the first like year, you are collecting all this data, financial data and psychological data and background checks and fire zoning checks. And there's just, it was unbelievable. Like, I am so well certified. Yeah, they make you go through all these hoops. And I would tell people as I was doing this, and people would be like, man, you don't have to go through all this to be a parent.
I don't even know if my area is like has good fire or whatever.
Right.
Like,
I have a fire plan that's posted. Right. I have to have a couple home visits. Got to meet with social workers.
It's tedious.
It's very tedious. There's just so many details. Well, and I understand it, right? They want to be sure that their child's going to a safe and loving home. But it's, you know, if you compare the process that international adoptees or any adoptive parents have to go through compared to someone who just is lucky with their fertility and gets pregnant, it's a lot.
It's a lot of hoops to jump.
Yeah.
You said that it wasn't a straightforward process for you, the ups and downs of that. How were you able to get through it and still did not give up?
I do think that I am pretty determined. And I dug in my heels, basically, and knew that this is what I wanted. And
you knew this is what you wanted?
Yeah. I just knew that I wanted this and I was going to get it.
How long into that process did you first meet your daughter?
Like 2 years into that process.
What?
Like 1.5 to 2 years, yeah.
Wow.
And different countries are different the way they do it. So they're, you know, the laws change depending on the country. Some have these socialization trips, and Haiti did. That's where my daughter's from, which is a really ridiculous process. So basically they bring you down and you spend 3 weeks bonding with your child, and then you leave. Oh. And it was a whole year from when I met her to when I was able to go back and bring her home.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That was probably the worst. That year was really hard.
And how was it for you coming back after that 3 weeks? Did you feel sure that you made the right decision?
Yes and no. I mean, I still had questions. So I would visit her every day during the socialization trip in the creche, in the orphanage, and they would give you like a time frame. You could come from, 10 to 2 every day, and that was it. Also, in Haiti, the poverty is really incredible. And so, on every level, and these orphanages really, they don't have a lot of means. And so I think there were probably 50 or more kids, infants to, probably 6-7-year-olds.
Wow.
That were running around. And so they would bring you for that period of time every day, and they would take your child, and you could visit and play with, mostly just focused on your kid, but you could also play with the other kids too. And so I saw her when she was 15 months old, and she didn't smile the whole time. And so that was difficult. Oh, so the process before you accept the referral. So you go through this, like you prepare your dossier, it goes through the government, your government, our government, their government, then you're matched, and they give you some preliminary, very brief information to get a referral. And once you get a referral, you've got like a week based on this very light information of whether or not you're going to proceed with that child. Then you do the socialization trip, like once you've accepted the referral. You can still back out, but I could not imagine doing that.
You were there for 3 weeks. You saw your daughter every day.
Every day.
Yeah. And she didn't smile.
She didn't smile. She would let me hold her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but didn't smile at all. And now, I mean, she's like full of
life.
Smiles and life. You can't stop her.
It took about a year
To go back.
To go back, to get her
Yep.
and bring her back.
Yes.
How was that?
Terrible. It was really hard. And it was hard because my circumstance got really bizarre. So I came back, and that November or December, the agency that I had used was accused of fraud and was shut down by the Department of Justice. And so that took me by surprise. It's like never done that the Department of Justice will dissolve, an agency. And so I thought the whole thing wasn't going to work. I mean, there were months where I thought, well, I just wasted 3 years and a whole lot of money, and I'm not going to get her. So that was a really worrisome time period. But I was fortunate in that I was far enough ahead in the process that it really didn't matter. The adoption was going through the Haiti court system, and so it was fine. Still long. It takes.
So how was that, bringing her back home from Haiti to the United States?
It was exhilarating and terrifying. I mean, we both adjusted. We both had a big adjustment to make. Because I'd been living alone in my nice, quiet life for a long time. And she had barely been out of the creche, right? They don't take those kids out of the orphanage. The stimulus was very limited to the orphanage. And so, I go there and I take her to the hotel where she hadn't seen, really like a bathtub or running water. Wow. Even just the air conditioning, right, of the hotel was a different new experience, tactile experience for her. She was exhausted. She
overload.
Slept. Oh, total stimulus overload. Also, she was really afraid of car rides. She would scream. That was really terrifying because she'd never really done it. There was a period of 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, where it was really, really hard because institutionalized children go through this really existential grieving process. And she was terrified. And so she would wail, scream like I've never seen, and throw herself wildly, on the floor, and was inconsolable. I couldn't comfort her. During that 3-week period, I figured out that the one thing that would calm her is going up and down the steps, holding her and going up and down the steps.
Wow.
And so I lost 15 pounds going up and down those damn steps. That first 6 months, right? That was the thing that would calm her down.
So workout.
So I just went up and down those steps with her.
Wow.
We don't still have to do that because I can't carry her anymore. She's
so big.
She's so big. But we got through it, right? I mean, I think it was really those first steps of her trusting me and me trusting her, and us knowing each other. Yeah, I mean, she would look at me and I would look at her. It was like we were strangers. Aww. And we had to really test each other out.
What would you tell someone about what you wish you had known before going through this process?
I wish I would have done it earlier. I'm an older mother. Sometimes I tell her, you've got an old mama. Right? Just the physical aspects to motherhood, I guess I really didn't know about or really understand just how physical it is. So I think about that sometimes. I wish I would have grieved a lot sooner and just
got it over and done with.
Just got it over with and done with.
How did people treat you and your daughter when the whole thing was done?
So I think I've been really fortunate. I kind of live in a little bubble, accepting, loving bubble, both at work and at home. And so I feel really lucky that I've just been really supported, and people were just really helpful and went out of their way to help. Yeah. I had several friends talk me off the ledge because after we were going up and down the steps, our next step was we would walk up and down the street. I would go for walks with her, right? And I'd carry her up and down the street.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember just some good friends like Holly and Lorraine and some other people just sort of saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. You're going to be fine.
Support is everything.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to someone that is considering doing this and wanting to go down the adoption route? What would you tell them?
I think there are a lot of personal decisions that have to be made about how you adopt, the manner in which you adopt, whether it's domestic or surrogacy or international adoption or adopting from foster care. Like, I think those are all personal questions that people have to ask themselves. Like, can I handle this? So I don't know that I have advice about any of that, but to say, be honest with yourself about what you want and what you think you can handle, and not idealize parenthood and think it's going to be natural and easy, especially with adoption, right? There's a lot that is,
you don't know.
You just don't know. And so it is, at some point, it was a leap of faith.
A leap of faith.
Well, whatever that cliche is, it was a leap. You're either going to do it or not do it. And at some point, you just have to make that decision to commit or not to commit. But I would also say it's been the most exciting, wonderful experience. I think I'm growing a lot from it, and she is amazing. I'm just in awe of her, that little girl.
Your baby.
My baby.
Oh.
She is just amazing.
Oh.
She really is.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
The smile on your face is just like from ear to ear.
Yeah. She's incredible. So I feel really lucky. I sort of feel like we found each other. It was a very circuitous route, but we found each other, and now we are a family.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie. I'm so thankful, and the listeners of Life, Love, and Therapy are very thankful. That is it for this episode. Thank you for joining. If you're looking for ways to help this show, please leave a nice review and recommend this podcast to your friends. Also, don't forget to like me on Facebook at Jumi Olawale Therapy and Counseling, and follow me on Instagram at Jumi Olawale The Therapist. If you have any topics that you would like me to cover on this podcast, please reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram. And you can also send me an email to jumiolawale@gmail.com. This is your host, Jumi Olawale. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.